What is up, guys? It's your boy obbldude. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about my Entropia Universe long game. I've kind of talked about like my investment ideas and what I plan on kind of doing with that, but I kind of wanted to talk about my long term, the way I see the long term gameplay going, for me at least. Before I talk about this, I just want to make something clear. I'm not saying that this way is the only way that things can be done in the long term or the long game. This is just kind of my plan, my idea, and something that I'm trying to kind of go for and see if it'll work or if not. Either way, it seems like, it shouldn't be too. I mean, it's not like a crazy plan anyway. It's not like anything like nuts. But anyway, just want to get that out there that this is kind of just my plan, what I plan on doing, and kind of my long term gameplay strategy. So, when it comes to kind of my long play, I kind of look at Entropia Universe in a lot of ways, kind of like real life, right? So, for example, in real life, right? You get a job and you work, and then you realize, wow, I'm not making anything. Now, you're not going to be losing, right? But you're like, oh, I'm not really making that much. I need to make more. And then you find other ways to make more and more money. And then eventually, once you make more and more, then you save more. And then once you have a decent amount saved up, then you start kind of investing it a little bit here and there, and kind of building that long-term play up as well. And then once you get kind of some investments under your belt, savings, things like that, then you go out and buy a property. And then you buy the property, you keep building up those savings, building up that income coming in. And then you kind of just go from there. And the whole thing's kind of like a game, just like Entropia. Now, in a lot of ways, real life is not only easier, but harder at the same time, right? There's a lot of ways where you can make a lot of more money easily. And then there's other things where it's a lot harder, right? So I kind of look at Entropia almost the same way, right? So, like, the beginning part is, stack up a little bit here and there, which my plan has always been to spend only about roughly, give or take on average, because there's months where I don't put any money in, and then there's some months where I put in a little bit more than I would, a little bit less, things like that. So when it comes to Entropia, basically my first goal is to basically average about the same amount of head going in as I would spend, either playing OSRS or Final Fantasy, between 10 to 20 bucks a month on average, right? That's kind of my goal, kind of like my objective, right? And with that, that's kind of like my paycheck, right? So like that's kind of where the money's coming from, things like that. And then you kind of build that up over time, grind the game, play it, get those skills up, kind of learn what each profession does, what you can do with each profession, which profession may or may not be a good fit for you, kind of thing. And then once you kind of build up that budget a little bit more, then that's where things kind of open up a little bit, right? Because my whole thing isn't so much about making money in this game. It's about building up to be able to do other things, right? So like, for example, putting in 10 to 20 a month on average to this game, like your average kind of MMO, you're building up your budget to be able to hunt, mine, do whatever. And then after that, you can also, and then once you do that, you kind of figure out, okay, how can I lose the least amount possible, right? Because that's the main gameplay for Entropia. It's not how can I make the most I can, it's how can I not lose as much as possible. You know what I mean? So one of the big things is you're not really even trying to make money in Entropia. You're trying not to lose money. You're trying to maintain the money that you put in as much as you can before pretty much losing too much, right? Like, because you don't want to be throwing in, 200 bucks for a run and coming out with like 50. That's Yeah, you're gonna run low pretty quickly in that aspect. So it's all about kind of maintaining your balance. That's when I look at entropia, that's kind of what I think of, is just maintaining the balance. And once you can maintain that balance and gain skills to a certain degree, then that kind of opens up more doors to more equipment that you can use, different mobs you can hunt, different areas you can mine, things like that. And then once you kind of get there, then for me at least, what I do is, let's say I get like a decent run, right? Like the last run where I was up like 20, 30 ped, whatever it was, in the last hunting run, for example. What I do is then I will either A, if it's a good amount, I can sell it first, or B, I will just take some ped that I currently have if I'm not ready to sell on auction yet. And whatever that profit margin was for me will end up being my investment. So, for example, if I'm up like 20, 30 pet on a run, right? And I know I'm pretty much at break even. I'm not like super down. Like I'm not trying to like kind of get back a lot of losses. Then what I kind of do is I just take that profit, whatever it was, and I'll either sell it if it's a good amount, or I will just take the ped out of my ped card, and whatever that number is, 20, 30, 40, whatever it is, ped, I will put that towards an investment. And for me, that is shares for the most part. And ideally, I want to be able to get as many shares as possible through that investment, right? So I'm probably not going to be going like for like Cali shares, you know what I mean? Unless I'm talking like 300 ped, right? So for that, I would be buying, maybe two, maybe three, depending on the price, Crystal Palace shares. Some halfway decent shares that pay some decent dividends, right? And then I'll do one of two things. Now, let's say I lose, right? Let's say I have a loss too. Let's say I lose 10, 20, 30 ped, right? So I do a lot of dollar cost averaging when it comes to shares. I try to dollar cost average as much as I can when it comes to shares. So that's my main objective. But sometimes if I'm like pretty low and I know I'm still down like 20, 30, 40 ped, and I've stacked up like my dividends for 2, 3, 4 months, which I do quite a bit. I don't try to cash out my dividends the minute that they show up. I kind of like to build them up a little bit if possible. And it's mainly for this reason, right? Because if I can build that up and get and save some of those dividends, then what I can do is, let's say I'm down 20, 30, 40 ped. Well, now let's say I have 20 or 30 ped, in dividends that I've been stacking for 3, 4, 5 months. Well, now I can kind of take that out, use that, offset my losses a tiny bit, and then that's going to kind of help the cycle continue, right? So I'm going to continue that cycle that way. And then you kind of get to the next phase, right? You kind of just keep building up your budget, you keep building up those shares, you keep building up those dividends, and then eventually you might have some spare ped where you're like, okay, I got my hunting budget, my mining budget here. I have some more peds stacked up here in inventory. And then you can kind of decide, okay, well, do I want to sell some of the stuff I have? Do I want to take some of this ped and buy something that I've wanted, whether it's equipment, a certain weapon, a certain finder, anything like that? Or in the longer term of aspects, you could even start buying property, land areas specifically. Now, that's like the super long game, but the whole idea, and I'm talking about like a realistic standpoint, right? I mean, this is not an investment, right? So unless you like the game and you like playing the game, everything I'm saying right now is a moot point because you shouldn't do it. But if you're gonna play this game, I feel like saving up money, saving up ped is going to be the best way to go. Because every time I make a deposit in this game, it's like that's where I burn my money. I don't think of it like, oh, I put in 200, I went mining and came back with 100, you know? Like let's say I put in 200 bucks for example. And let's say I do a mining run and I come back with 100 bucks, right? To me that's not setting money on fire. To me set the moment that I set the money on fire when it comes to Entropia is the deposit. The deposit itself is when you set the money on fire. So if you can kind of have that expectation like, okay, I'm going to be setting this money on fire the minute that this deposit happens, then that kind of opens up a different perspective. And instead of trying to make money, you're almost trying to save money in a way, right? Because then if you're saving money and you have PED in your card to spend, in your inventory, whether it's in resources or whatever, it's all savings, right? And that's kind of the way I see it, right? You have your savings, your investments, your potential properties. If you can get that much PED, if you can save that much PED or make that much PED, or if you just have the drive to do that. And I mean, LAs aren't for everyone. I'm not even 100% sure if I'm going to get involved at some point, if I have the funds to do so. Not 100% sure on that. I don't really intend to, but you never know. But the way I see it is it's very similar to real life in a way, right? It's a grind. You know, it's a grind between saving, making, and not losing, I guess, right? Because you can make, like, for example, in real life, you could make 100 grand a year and still be living paycheck to paycheck. Because if you're spending 80% of that or more, when you're getting it, I mean, you're still going to be, low on money anyway, right? And I kind of look at this game in kind of the same way. I can either blow all the pet I depot at once, or I can kind of stretch it and give myself a better chance to get something good out of it, right? So that's kind of the whole thing. And my long-term gameplay strat is basically save money, invest it, because doing what I'm doing now, you're still going to be setting it on fire most of the time anyways. But playing efficiently helps. Playing for markup really helps. I'm not getting any markup from these guys, so I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, these guys really have no markup stuff unless, like, you can really pick something up, right? That's why I like doing the low level fouls, because now you're getting all this kind of high markup stuff. And with these bigger fouls, I am not seeing that. I'm really not seeing that. I feel like my first couple runs, I was getting more high markup items than I am now. Now it's just straight up strap, pretty much. But it's just a long-term game, like building up the skills, building up the budget, building up the investments for shares and things like that. At least it's only a level 5. That helps. Okay, now we're getting a little bit. We're getting some paint cans at least. But yeah, that's kind of my whole thing, is just building it up, saving it up. And, that might not be the best way to go, but I mean, I'm spending... Nice. Nice. That was a good one. That was a really good one. I like that. But, building it up, saving it up. And, I'm not saying it's the best way to go, but for me, it kind of makes the most sense. Because if you kind of just look at it kind of in just an average economic kind of standpoint, I mean, saving, investing, that's pretty much the whole bread and butter to any economy, right? And then if you have that saving stacked up, if something pops up on auction that you really want, you can pick it up. Let's say, I don't know, a land area or a shop that you're interested in opens up, and you can act first on it, kind of a thing. And then you have the shares. You have your land areas, which are a lot of work and pretty hard to maintain. But if you can maintain it, that's the ultimate end goal, right? Even though I think the ultimate end goal, which like virtually not many people would ever be able to do, is own like a planet itself. Like being a planet partner, that's, to me, that seems like very few and far in between. That's more of diving into the more unrealistic aspects of the game, right? But still a potential possibility, I guess, right? But just stacking up the ped, trying to play efficiently, having fun just playing, and being like, okay, you know what? I lost a little bit, but or maybe even I lost a lot, but we'll get it back one way or another, whether it's throwing in an extra $10 here and there, or, you know, saving up some dividends from your shares and building that up and kind of offsetting your losses through there. But ultimately, also with my personal end game goal and long game goal, I should say, actually, is just trying to skill up as much as I can, with all the different professions. That way I kind of have as much opportunity as possible, because in this game, opportunity is pretty scarce, I would say, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. But at the same time, if you take all the few opportunities that there are in this game and kind of combine them together, I feel like that's going to put you at an advantage. And basically it's a money game. It's pay to win. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the end. This is probably the most pay to win game possibly, in the aspects of just simply, the more money you have, the more you can do, if that makes sense. But my ultimate end long game is just grinding those skills, getting higher level, being able to move money around through the loot pools in many different ways, and all that. Now, this run, we're probably gonna not do the best this run, obviously, just because we had a crazy run last time. So we're kind of gonna break even, if anything, from that. So we'll still be broken even if this run doesn't go very well. You know what I mean? So I mean, either way, the long-term game is all how you look at the game, and that's gonna depend on whether you're here for 5 years or 20 years. You know what I mean? Because if you can kind of maintain that break-even efficiency, stacking up ped, and then eventually being able to play like higher and higher level, that's kind of the long-term game, right? It's the same thing with like poker or almost anything else. Like when it comes to like casino games, or professional casino players, I should say. They spend years studying, building up their balance, and then they take that balance that they build up and then they try to do something with it. And that exists. And to me, I mean, I think they're two very different things. I would much rather play the long game in Entropia than the poker long game, in my opinion. Even though the chances of making money are higher, the chances of losing money are also higher. So when it comes to the long game, there's another thing I kind of want to touch on. A big part of my long game is just working on that efficiency, right? My ultimate goal is, no matter what, to pretty much break even more often than not, right? So, for example, the ultimate goal for me, right, is to be able to go out and do a run, and it doesn't matter whether I, let's use the last hunting run for example, right? Oops. Let's use the last hunting run for an example, right? Like, let's say, I make 30 ped over TT, right, in one run, let's say, okay? And let's say I make over 30 ped in one run, and then I come back to do another run, and let's say I lose 30 ped, right? That's breaking even. That means you're going to make 100% profit on the markup. And that's my ultimate goal. I'm not even going for over TT, because I know that's not going to happen. It's going to be very hard, if not impossible, based on, MindArc's 95% return rate and their 5% cut, right? So, I mean, virtually that's never going to really happen. But if I can go out one run and make 30 ped over TT, and then go out on another run and lose 30 ped TT, Well, now that's breaking even TT value, and you're making 100% on the markup. And that's really the ultimate goal for me, at least when it comes to hunting, mining, just all the professions in this game anyway. And I feel like that's kind of the idea that Mind Arc had, right? That eventually, once you skill up enough, once you grind enough, once you stack up your balance enough, once you get, educated on different kinds of equipment that you may or may not should be using and things like that, and putting everything together to get to a point where no matter what happens, whether one run you're up 30 ped TT and another run you're down 30 ped TT, at the end of the day, you should be somewhat breaking even, if not losing maybe a little bit, like that 5% from Mind Arc's cut, right? But a lot of times you can do better than that in a lot of ways. But ultimately, in the long term, you're going to be losing that 5%. So that's why you need to essentially offset with the shares, for example, and getting the dividends from the shares. Offsetting that by, whenever you do see a little bit of profit, kind of like I did the last run, I just took 30 ped out of my ped card or out of my storage actually, and added that to get some more shares. That way I can kind of offset those 30 ped losses over and over again by just getting, a couple shares here, a couple shares there. And now we're starting to see some of that higher markup stuff, which is nice. It was really hard to get that at the beginning, but now we're starting to get some of that high markup, or higher markup, I should say. But at the end of the day, it's all about the grind, all about stacking. And that's really what it comes down to, is stacking. Stacking skills, stacking ped, stacking equipment, stacking knowledge and information, and then putting all of that together to try and break even on average. And then that leads to the markup, right? Because in the long game, you're going to be losing about 5% regardless, right? But 5% ain't that bad. I mean, if you think of it like a dividend investment, if you were earning 5% off a dividend annually, I mean, let's say you put in $1,000, right? I mean, dude, you're making $50 a year, right? So if you think about it the same way but backwards, if I put $1,000 into this game in a year, theoretically I should only lose 50 if all my ducks are in a row and everything's going, and if I'm following my strat, right? So at the end of the day, if I put $1,000 into this game, theoretically I should only lose 50. And then if I can make 50 a year from the dividends from the shares, boom, you're breaking even. And then at that point, you're making 100% off the markup again. So the thing I want to just really touch on here and kind of make clear is that when it comes to the long game, we have a lot of tools to work with. This is not a short-term game. You are not going to make money in the short term. It just doesn't happen. It's a long-term grind, long-term game. And that's kind of why I like it. Because, it's something that you grind for years and years. And then, you can look back like 5 years ago and be like, wow, I was only at this point. Now I'm at this point doing this. And, now I'm just playing at a whole nother level kind of thing. And it kind of makes it cool because it kind of makes the whole thing worth it. I mean, it's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of everything, really. But if you can get it figured out and it works, it makes the game a lot more enjoyable in a lot of ways. Because my long term really is just to be able to come on, play a little bit if I want, and to almost be able to do anything I want in a way, which that'll take still a long, long time. But playing the long game might be a little boring, might not be quite as fun as doing some other things, but it all depends on what your goals are. I feel like so many of us that play this game, we all have our own goals. We all have our own reasons for playing, right? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And that's what makes this game awesome, because there's so many ways to go about it and so many ways to do it. I'm kind of challenging myself more so, and I'm trying to be consistent in professions that are not very consistent, right? Especially hunting. I've seen a lot more consistency mining than I have hunting. Hunting has gotten better, though, I will say. And if I do a little bit more, who knows? I might see even more consistency there than I do mining. But at the end of the day, you first got to just ask yourself, what's my goal? Like, what's my long term goal? What do I want to achieve? Do I want to make 1,000 ped by not putting in any money, which is going to be very hard? I feel like that's a lot more inconsistent than hunting or mining in a lot of ways. Although you could grind it out and build it up quite a bit. But ultimately, I feel like that's a little more inconsistent. But, it doesn't matter. However you want to go about it. And, the long game is very slow. It's a grind. You're going to have to probably do a lot of things that you might not want to do, but ultimately might end up being beneficial in the long term, right? When I started, I wanted to spend no more than $100 a year, right? So that was like $10 a month on average. And there were even months where I didn't even put anything in. I would put in 10 or 20 in a month, and then I'd wait like 3 months and then put like some more in. So like I started really low, really slow. And now I'm starting to kind of double down just a tad bit, just because now that the skills are there, the equipment's there, or actually I still need to get some equipment, but pretty much a lot of the long-term stuff is already set right there. But I would say for me, ultimately, I just want to be able to fully play efficiently and then stack up enough ped to maybe be able to do some other cool stuff. And that's about that. I mean, all I'm really going for is just trying to play a lot better than I did before. You know what I mean? Like, that's really what keeps me going in this game. That's really my motivation, is being able to do things I haven't been able to do before, right? Even if, I don't do anything crazy, just being able to come out and break even and not lose more than 5%. I mean, to me, that's a huge accomplishment, right? Because it's a very hard thing to do. And it takes a long time to get to that point. Because, I get a lot of comments saying that there is no really skill base to this. It's just all luck and it's a casino, which I just disagree with. If you're at level 5, you're not gonna get 100 ped global or a 50 ped global. It's just not gonna happen. Like, that's a guarantee. It's guaranteed to not happen. So like, that's why I kind of disagree with the whole luck casino thing to some extent, because like, for example, I could walk into a casino, never been there before, going in with just, maybe $1,000 that I stacked up for a while and just want to blow there. And I could either win 10 times my money, 100 times my money, or lose it all, right? But with Entropia, it's not quite like that. With Entropia, it's more like, if you're at level 5, you're capped to some extent. You're not going to be getting that 50, 100 peg global. I just don't see it. I just don't see you being able to either hunt a mob good enough to be able to do that, or find a resource big enough to be able to do. It's just not going to happen. But you're kind of just capped in that aspect, right? So it's not really luck based, right? Because if it was, it wouldn't matter what level you were at. Wait, what? Okay. That was really interesting to me. That's new. I have not seen that before. So I just got a resource claim for dying from a mob. Interesting. I got to go back out and get that. I got to head back out there. I got to go get that. That is really interesting to me. But this is exactly what I'm talking about, though. Like, when I talk about like playing efficiently and like, this is kind of what I mean, like, in a way, like This game operates like if you start losing more than you should, the game's going to give you something extra. And for some reason, I got a resource claim. I'm not sure why. I need to try to figure out where I was to find it. There it is. There's my claim. All right, so it was more this way. But that's still really interesting, though, that that happened. That was a really weird way to offset some of those losses right there. Because I had to do a lot of healing. I think I got my TT back, though, for my healer just from this claim. Or almost. Probably almost. Let's see. We're at about 130. Okay, 2 ped. Almost 3 ped. Over 3 ped. Yeah, so we almost got the full TT back for my healer. So that's pretty good. Let's see. What are we looking at as far as ammo? We got 19 ped left. Might be able to go a little more. Kind of want to do a full run today. Like an actual full run. Oh, I forgot to mention, as I always do. We started with 63 ped today on this run. 63 ped is what we started with going on this run. So we'll see what we can make of it. But at the end of the day, the long game is a long grind, just like life, in my opinion. You know, you try something, you're like, this isn't really working out very well for me. It's not enough, whatever. Try something else and kind of just build upon that and build upon that and stacking up your balance, stacking up your investments, getting those dividends to offset, and just being able to consistently play and have the opportunity to do things when they come up, right? So at the end of the day, the long term for me is pretty much just being able to build up, you know, kind of like in life, you know. You start small, you start off with nothing, and you build it up, and then over time, 10, 15, 20 years later, you know, you can kind of look back at where you were then and where you are now and be like, wow, you know, I kind of, you know, made it quite a long way, and I never thought I'd get this far, kind of a thing, you know. And that's the way I see it. You know, I see it more as I went from losing every single run to almost breaking even every single run, you know, or in some way breaking even just in the long term. So even if I'm losing, you know, every other run, if it's right about the same as my loss as my win, then it's breaking even. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't shoot for in a way. Just because I'm not in this for money, right? I mean, yes, I only play this because it's a real cash economy, because I'm not going to lie. If this wasn't a real cash economy, this would probably be one of the most boringest games ever, in my opinion. There's just so many better and more things to games than this, right? But because it is a real cash economy, it is a little more limited. But if you tried playing a game like this without the real cash economy aspect, I mean, there's really nothing going for it, right? So don't get me wrong there. But I'm just saying it's more of playing around with economics, right? And not just that, but seeing what you can do with it. Seeing if you can push the envelope. Seeing if you can do the impossible, you know? That's kind of what gets me going. Is trying to do the thing that everyone said couldn't be done, right? Like, for example, when I first started buying Bitcoin back in the day, I was spending $150 a week to get 1 Bitcoin every week. And people told me I was a fucking idiot for it, you know? I was told that I was an idiot. And they were like, dude, you're going to get scammed. You're going to lose all your money. Even though I was making $600 a week and I was spending $150 a week on 1 Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my shirt, right? And it's just like, I feel like it's the same attitude with Entropia. And that's why I'm doubling down. That's why I keep going. And that's why I kind of get a smile on my face when I keep seeing the comments that are like, you're going to waste all your money. You're going to lose everything. Bro, I'm not even putting 10% of what I have into this. Maybe like 4 or 5% of what I have is going into this. And it's not even as an investment. It's just for fun. So out of everything I have, I'm only spending 5% on this game to have fun at the end of the day. So I just think it's funny when I get those comments too, and it's like, bro, I'm no, I'm not that kind of player. I'm not that kind of player that dumps in crazy amounts of money and then loses it. You know what I mean? I just, you guys that have been here for a while, you know my mantra, which is pretty much play more, spend less. That's 100% what I do, and that's what I'm going to be doing forever in this game. I'm going to be trying to spend as less as I can to play as much as I can. It's the same concept as real life economics, except instead of buy low, sell high, I'm just trying to spend less and play more. You know what I mean? That's all I'm trying to do at the end of the day is I'm trying to spend the least amount possible to do the highest level thing possible and play for as long as I can, right? And if I really wanted to stretch things, I could just go to Fort Troy and I could be hunting, level 4 fowls with the Barbarella, which I was doing. That was part of the 700 ped challenge, which that was just too much for me. That was too much gameplay. That's like the ultimate spend less, play more kind of thing. Like that was a lot. Like in order to spend, I think I spent like 400 or 500 ped in that time hunting level 4 foul youngs with the Barbarella, right? Dude, I think that gave me like 15 to 20 hours of gameplay. Like if not more. Like in total. And then even still I didn't get, actually no, not even. I didn't even, no, I spent like 200. Sorry. No, I had like 500 left out of the 700 ped. I had 500 ped left. And it was like 200 ped that I spent. And that was like 15, 20 hours. So, I mean, if you really want to go crazy with play more, spend less, that's the way to go. 100%. I haven't seen anything better than that. Because honestly, they loot just the same as these guys, if not better. And you're spending even less. So I mean, it's all about efficiency. It's all about putting the right combos together, Like the Barbarella, I call it my foul freaking destroyer, It's what I use for fouls. Or the foul youngs anyway. I wouldn't use it for these guys because I'm barely surviving as it is. But like for the foul youngs, I mean, the Barbarella, I mean, dude, it's super low in cost. You're not burning anything and you're just making that ped. However, because the mobs are pretty low level, you're still going to lose. Out of that 200 ped, you're still going to be down like 40 or 50 ped at least. Now, for me, it's a little different because at the time I was doing that, I was getting the twin tokens as well. And since those just went down in price and got destroyed, I didn't get quite as much as I probably should have gotten. But still, out of that 200 ped, I was still losing like 50 ped out of every 200 ped, right? So, I mean, even though the costs were super low in the long term, at the end of the day, I was still losing, honestly, probably more than I will right now. I can't see me losing 50 ped right now. Like, I can't see myself losing anywhere close to 50 ped right now. I'm spending 60, so, I guess it's a little different. But even still, I'm kind of curious to see what I would come out with if I spent 200 ped here. I'm really curious. That might be the next video, honestly. Because I'm really curious now to see if I come out here with 200 ped, will I lose more than 50 ped or less than 50 ped? That's the ultimate question for me, right? So I'm kind of curious about that. But we only got 40 shots left here. I think we're looking pretty good. We got about 5 ped left in ammo. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to wrap up this run. kind of a lengthier run for me than what I normally do hunting. I'm trying to skill up the hunting a little bit more now to get some other skills that I'm looking to get as well. So it's all about just grinding, gaining skills, and playing the game low and slow. That's always been my motto for everything, is low and slow. But anyway, let's see how much ped we got in this run. So when we started the run, we started with 63 ped when the run began. We have 5 ped left in probes. So let's go to sell here. I'm expecting to lose about 20 to 30 here. Wow. So we're still not down at all. Or breaking even. We're still up. Because the last run we got like 20, 30 ped, something like that over TT. Now we're at 58 ped in what we've gotten today from this hunting run. And then we combine that with our 5 ped here. So now we're talking 63 ped. So we broke even on this run. So still up overall TT. I will say, I mean, yeah. And then from there, where's our resource that we got? We got this resource for 3 ped. So, I mean, this alone paid for our healer. So we broke even and broke even on the healer. Maybe lost 1 ped on the healer. Maybe lost 1 ped on the healer. And then, of course, we kind of have our armor and things like that as well. I mean, we did not really lose any TT, though. I mean, this chest piece is the same pretty much as it was before. I mean, maybe 5 ped down. So we might be down like 5 ped on armor, maybe. Which is one thing also why I kind of stay away from hunting a little bit, just because there's so many more variables and so many more ways to kind of lose. But I do want to keep skilling up like Mind Force and things like that. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. We broke even on this run this time, which means we're still up like TT over the past 2 runs, which is really good. And especially for my level, that's really good. And kind of my long-term expectation, I guess, is that's just going to get a little bit better and better as I keep getting better and better equipment to use because I'm skilling up more and more. So that's kind of the ultimate thing, is just keeping it going, if that makes sense. Anyway, guys, that's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. Like the video if you liked the video. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.